A big hello and a very warm welcome to Brand Equity with me, Sonali Krishna. As India's fantasy sport market continues its meteoric rise to hit the projected 72 billion mark by 2030, driven by, of course, increasing sports popularity, digital engagement, and a surge in mobile tech adoption, one player stands at the forefront, particularly transforming India's second religion, cricket, into a digital battlefield. No prizes for guessing, that's right, it's Dream11. This fantasy cricket app has redefined fan engagement and digital sporting experiences. And today, I'm joined by Vikrant Mudaliar, the Chief Marketing Officer of Dream11, to delve into the brand's expanding influence, its flamboyant advertising campaigns, its long-standing association with the Indian Premier League, the impact of sponsoring Team India, and the game of skill versus game of chance debate. Thank you so much, Vikrant, for joining me right here in the studio. Excited to have this conversation.
Thank you so much, Sonali. Lovely to be here, and I'm equally excited to spend some time with you.
First up, before I ask you any questions, I must congratulate you on a fantastic campaign that you've just unleashed before the IPL. And despite not being the title sponsor, I think you've already won the game on the creative front, with your latest campaign, when you've got all the cricketers and the stars. And, even before this interview was scheduled, the kind of praise that this campaign has been getting from industry statesmen, from your own peers, it's been outstanding. So I wanted to personally congratulate you.
Thank you so much, Sonali. Well, if there was any pressure on us as far as this campaign was concerned, I think it's increased even more thanks to the praise that you've heaped on us. It's still early days for us. You're right, some of the feedback and the sentiment around the campaign has been overwhelming. It's been a pleasant surprise. We thought we'd done a reasonably good job. We are now being told, thanks to people like you and lots of others, that it actually is rare that they've seen the campaign of this quality. So, and I think it's been an effort which has involved not just the Dream11 marketing team, including my brand marketing team, but also working very collaboratively with our advertising agency, which is still 10050, which also is a collaboration of sorts between two different agencies, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, a breakaway arm of the same agency. And a lot of advanced planning, which started almost 7-8 months, has led us to this point in time. So fingers crossed. We're looking forward to IPL this time. Yeah.
ऑस्ट्रेलिया में था वो बोला. That was my favorite 100 of yours.
आमिर भाई, एक फोटो मिलेगा क्या?
हाँ, of course.
नहीं, वो रणबीर के साथ. बहुत बड़ा फैन हूँ उसका.
अरे फोटो क्या पप्पी दे देगा? अपने ही बच्चे. आजा. हाँ, चलो यार. बच्चों. सर. ऋषु, तुम्हारी जनरेशन का सबसे बड़ा स्टार. रणबीर सिंह.
सिंह नहीं सर, कपूर.
अरे एक ही बात है यार.
Just to understand how you kind of got all these heavyweights together, right? And according to industry sources, the campaign cost is quite extensive. It's over 80 crores if the estimates are right.
The estimates are completely wrong, but anyway, I think far from it actually. It's quite amusing when people talk about such numbers, because I think they've got their math completely wrong in terms of what goes behind as far as cost is concerned for a campaign of this scale. So I'll talk a bit about that as well. But to your initial point about what led to sort of the idea, the advertising idea behind this campaign, and Aapki Team Mein Kaun, the genesis of that. So I think it's interesting to think about what is the insight that drives a particular advertising idea. In this case, the fact that life is all about having good teamwork, and who's in your team will very often define how successful your team is. So therefore, this act or this art of actually selecting team members is crucial to success, whether it's in life or business or sport. And I think that universal truth is something that we felt has great resonance with fantasy sports as well. What is intrinsic to fantasy sports is selection of a team, and depending on the kind of players you've chosen and how well those players perform in the real match will define the points you get,
right.
And therefore you could sort of win or lose. So I think you need to exercise skill, intelligence, judgment, and be very careful about selecting members in your team. And therefore the advertising tagline, ki Aapki Team Mein Kaun, is really a testament to that fact, that it literally is saying that please be careful while selecting your team. When we are saying who's in your team, therefore implying that please select carefully. How do you creatively marry this with an interesting idea? The point about using a marriage of Bollywood and cricket. As you probably know, Sonali, Dream11 now has a user base of almost about 235 million users.
Yeah.
We are now looking at where do we get the next 50, 100 million for. So therefore, we, in terms of just pure reach and engaging with audience, we need to look at something which lets us talk to 500, 600 million people. Now, in India, it's very often cricket and Bollywood, movies and entertainment, which will give you that kind of reach, audience reach actually. So that was the starting point of saying that we need to have a mix of both, which through our cricketers and through now the presence of bona fide superstars like Aamir and Ranbir, which led to that idea. It's something that we've done in the past as well. It's worked well for us. And therefore, we felt that the kind of storytelling we want to do for the IPL campaign meant that this was a formula that we would want to employ again with a little bit of a creative twist as you're seeing this time.
So my question really was, how did you, I mean, it's amazing that you managed to get such big stars, right, to take themselves lightly,
yes,
right?
yes.
And I think that's comes across very beautifully, and respect to them also to kind
Yes.
of agree to do that.
Correct.
And I think India also needs to take itself a little less seriously. So, I mean, it's great that they could do that. How did you manage? Was it difficult to convince stars of, you know, that stature to kind of mock
Yeah.
themselves?
I'm so glad you brought this up because, and you're right, and no offense meant, Indians sometimes, as a nation, as a people, we take ourselves too seriously. Sometimes we get offended too easily. Sometimes our egos are misplaced.
Absolutely.
So in this case, the bigger the celebrity, sometimes the bigger is the ego. And, so, and I think kudos to just the sheer maturity and large-heartedness of Aamir and Ranbir and some of the cricketers as well,
Yeah.
in saying that we are okay with this self-deprecation. If you want to take a pot shot at us and if the joke lands on us, so be it, as long as we deliver a great creative product. And they are actors, ultimately, you know, they also want to get engaged with projects or work on stuff which actually fulfills that creative need. So I think that's what got them really excited when the scripts were narrated to them, when the advertising idea was explained to them. And a lot of jamming and on-the-fly improvisation also happened, thanks to you know, sort of feedback and inputs from Aamir and Ranbir themselves. We were quite pleasantly surprised, and when he said, "Are you sure?" You know, he said, "Yeah, please put it. You know, and I'll take care of." Yeah, so what? I think there's one film where the butt of the joke is one of Aamir's previous films, which hasn't done too well. And he said, "Yeah, sure, I know it's a flop." Yeah, so therefore, wow. You know, the joke will land even better if you make a reference to that, or about his height in some
Yeah.
films. Or Ranbir sort of, you know, playing second fiddle at times. And as you see, we'd like to strike a balance where both of them have come as winners equally. And different films will probably do justice to that. But you're right, had it been any other actor, any other celebrity, I am not sure if we would have been able to pull this off.
रैपिड फायर
इंडिया के फेमस रेसलर का नाम,
धन सिंह,
फ्लाइंग सिख का नाम,
मिल्खा सिंह,
तेरी सेल्समैन वाली फिल्म का नाम,
रॉकेट सिंह,
तेरा नाम,
रणवीर सिंह, चीटिंग, कपूर.
And I think the film lands so brilliantly and, you know, makes it such a great watch. It's because of the fact that, you know, they can take themselves
take
so
a joke
lightly.
themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Correct,
yeah,
correct.
And poke fun at oneself,
True,
right?
true.
And hopefully, you know, the larger audience watching will take a cue from that and wear their skin lightly. But having said that, I'm also curious to know how much this cost you, because it is star-studded.
Sure,
and
sure.
you've used the stars so well. Instead of just, you know, a regular brand ambassador, which is done to death, but of course brands can't get over that. But I'm saying that just the use of everybody in their true avatar was done so beautifully. So how much was this film?
Yeah, so the point about cost or budgets on this one in particular is that we do contracts and agreements with other cricketers or even Bollywood celebrities on a long-term basis.
Sure.
They could be annual deals or sometimes even 2 or 3 year deals. For the IPL campaign itself, while you might have been, and a lot of people have been exposed to just one film, we've actually shot 9 plus 20, almost 29 films, almost 30 films. Now there's a brand campaign and then there's a sort of a tactical campaign which is driving urgency around promotions and offers, which will happen on a weekly basis. It's been branded as Is Hafte Kya, and so Amir and Ranbir and the cricketers have been used in that as well. So when we look at a lump sum cost, it's something that is not allocated or should not be apportioned to just this particular.
I think which is what the mistake has been made.
Yeah, correct. So what people have done is Amir cost plus Ranbir cost plus so many cricketers cost is equal to
80 crores.
Yeah. So that math is completely wrong.
Correct.
The other thing worth noting is that the IPL campaign is just 2 months in a year.
True.
There are another 10 months in the year. We use most of our celebrity endorsers all throughout the year. And whether it's their IP or their usage or their images or even shoot other sort of advertising material with them. So if at all, then the cost needs to be allocated. It needs to be further apportioned over that entire 12 months of the year. Sure, there's a certain amount which gets allocated a portion just for as a production exercise just for IPL. And I also don't want to shy away from the fact that yes, it is significant and running into crores, but certainly not that figure. It's a little. So we'll have to do a little bit of a complicated calculation. So we divide this by 30.
But what would be the approximation so that we can put all the industry estimates and rumors to bay, and
so
put it at rest?
It's naturally in crores. Once I'm done with that complicated calculation, I'll get back to you, Sonali.
Okay. Just explain to me your media mix, because I think from what I've understood is that this is purely digital play.
No. So in terms of our lead mediums, you're right. We are a digital first brand. Bulk of our spends, majority of our spends tend to be on digital. There's lots of performance advertising, which a lot of people like you and me may not be exposed to. I mean, I'm exposed to because I drive it. But this is largely performance advertising, which might happen on the Googles and the Metas of this world. And then there's television, and now obviously the streaming on Jio Hotstar. So these, from a media mix point of view, these primarily will be the bulk of media spends and weights will go on these platforms. We don't do any other media like print or outdoor or radio. Yep.
Sure, but in the traditional mix, you do have TV.
So TV will be there. In fact, we are the co-presenting sponsor on Star Sports for the IPL. And there'll be a healthy presence even on Jio Hotstar.
I see.
That will happen. And there's a third big element, which is around sponsorships, which means that we tie up with the IPL teams. So we are official partners with 9 of the 10 IPL teams actually. Principal or lead sponsor with 5 of them. You'll see the...
Yeah, it's all over Instagram that you're sponsoring 5
Correct. Five teams where we are... The front of jersey will have the Dream11 logo. So along with those teams, then also comes a lot of fan engagements and meet and greets and on-ground activations and some on-ground branding. So that's another leg. So between television, digital of 2 types, which is performance and brand, and sponsorships will take up bulk of our media mix or marketing spend in that sense.
Just to now, kind of pivot into the fantasy sport market, right?
Sure.
I'm under the impression that, this is a growing space, but it's mostly male dominated. If you're looking to kind of increase and grow this pie, not just for Dream11, but generally the industry per se, what is the kind of effort you're making to get, more women on? Or is it a sport that women don't enjoy?
Yeah. No, so in some ways, you're right. Driving women participation or engagement on Dream11 is a sort of key focus area for us. But very often this will mirror, the women's behavior towards sport in general.
Sure.
So as a function of male viewership versus female viewership on sport in general and cricket or IPL, that it tends to go up during IPL, which is a good thing. And therefore, you'll see some of that, whether it's sports gaming or whether it's fantasy sports, that skew of being male dominated tends to be there. What's heartening for us to notice that still the percentage growth that we're seeing on women participation on Dream11 actually has been doubling year on year.
Okay.
And is in healthy sort of double digits now. We also have consciously realized that there are lots of women fans who are not just sort of sports but cricket fans and who enjoy playing fantasy sports. They also want to display their knowledge of the game and skill.
Is this basically like playing fantasy sport? Would you say that India's consumer behavior, or gender behavior, is mapping the global trends, or is there a difference?
No, I would say there still is a bit of a lag in that sense, in terms of, let's say, generally, I mean, Sonali, quite honestly, even before we talk about fantasy sports or sports viewership, it's women's participation in sports per se.
Correct, yeah.
You know, so it needs to start at that grassroots level. You know, one of the things that, in terms of Dream11's vision is to make sports better. What's good for sports is generally good for Dream11.
Yeah.
So I think we like to play that almost evangelical role of trying to promote the sports ecosystem, because we know that ultimately, if it's more thriving, if there are more users, including women users, eventually there'll be a trickle-down effect on Dream11 as well. There's the other sort of goal that we have of even moving down to tier 2, tier 3 and tier 4 markets.
Sure.
Dream11 is certainly not an urban or a metro brand. You know, these 235 million users are across the pop strata of this country. They are not just sitting in them.
But where, for instance, have you mapped? I'm sure you've mapped that.
Of course.
Where is most of this interest?
In fact,
coming from?
more than half of them are now coming from tier 3 towns.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, and that sort of takes me back to that initial point of when we said that the campaign is off to a great start, and there's a lot of excitement and euphoria around it, you know. And I'm telling ourselves, my team and myself, that we need to stay grounded, because these 100, 200, 300 million people who are in tier 3 markets, they have not been exposed to the campaign yet. They are the ones I want to talk to. They are the ones I want to engage and expose them, educate them to, let's say, about fantasy sports, and hopefully attract them to Dream11. So I think it's and therefore the tonality and the kind of language we use and the mass appeal that I spoke about.
Sure.
This cuts across men and women. But I think, and language as well. I think increasingly the diverse country that India is, we realize that sort of customizing for markets, including having a vernacular, flavor to how we communicate and engage with them, is equally important.
You know, as the Chief Marketing Officer, I guess you also have this great responsibility of changing the narrative for the industry, with continuous lobbying, education, awareness that
Sure.
this is not a game of skill. This is a game of skill and not a game of chance, right?
Correct.
Like, how successful are you in that attempt to kind of educate people that this is really skill and this is not gambling?
Sure. So you're right. It's something that we've tried to do over the last 7 years. I'm glad that, game of skill and game of chance are now commonly used phrases. They were not, let's say, 7 to 10 years back. There's a generic education around differentiation between fantasy sports versus, other formats which may not be legal. What has happened during the course of this last 7-8 years is also been this the fact that legally and from the judiciary, there have been enough sort of court judgments around it, which have also given that stamp of approval. There's enough education that has happened at an industry level. Lots of industry bodies have come together to try and educate different stakeholders, whether it's users or government or industry. So a lot of that has also happened parallelly along the way. The fact that the industry is also fueled this growth within the entire larger gaming ecosystem and has been a sort of torchbearer of sorts for driving more investments and more employment, and leading to that kind of India being a hub for gaming. So a lot of that narrative actually has gone hand in hand with fantasy sports actually. So to your question, that have we completely sort of licked that problem of making everybody educated and understanding the difference? Obviously not. I think the government and lots of other people also have been working closely with industry bodies to make sure that happens. So things have been moving well in that direction, and we hope that more will happen on that front.
What would you say would be the most valuable insights you've kind of got by just observing how people are playing this game in terms of, love for players, love for teams?
Yeah.
How do you think, because you would have all those insights,
True.
What can you tell me that would excite cricket lovers who are, now happy that IPL is beginning and are also looking to kind of make their strategic moves with their own teams?
So I think there are a couple of them which really are sort of, latent insights, as I like to call them, around, what triggers this behavior around not just watching cricket in particular or IPL, but also fantasy sports. One is bragging rights. Yeah, I am smarter than you.
Sure.
We don't like to say it, but we like to display it. And fantasy sports gives you a chance of saying that, or you thought which players are going to do well, or you thought you are going to make a great team. One thing, this behavior around bragging rights and saying that I'm smarter than you fuels a lot of this sort of competitive play around fantasy sports. The second is it adds a little more engagement and turns what we call passive viewing into active viewing. So there's this whole business of lean back, as we like to call it, and just relax and passively watch the match and figure out what's happening. The moment you've created a fantasy,
that's true. You're so much more invested.
Now that whole passive experience becomes active, because you'll say, "Oh, Virat Kohli is my captain." And oh, he's made a 50. Oh, naturally, I'm up on the leaderboard, and so you'll scroll and see in my contest where I'm up and down. So that's what I meant by how this is great for viewership. This is great for broadcasters in the media. So I think that's the second bit that, in terms of insights, that we have noticed over the years.
Is it true that most players, like majority of your participants, would choose Virat Kohli as their captain, or do the insights surprise you?
No. So that's not the true. In fact, there are lots of features in the Dream11 app which enable or assist the creation of a team. So for example, there'll be a percentage selected by, which will give you a good idea that majority of people are now choosing either Virat Kohli or Rohit Sharma or Hardik Pandya as their captain, and somebody else as their vice captain. Now the trick lies on you figuring out today's playing conditions and what kind of match it is and who's bowling first and who's fielding first. Is Virat going to open, or is he going to be second down or third down? And so I better make an all-rounder my captain. So typically all-rounders tend to be the preferred captains because they get the maximum points as opposed to just batsmen or bowlers. So I think there's no strict sort of formula around it. There's been enough sort of statistical studies by lots of universities that in terms of the learning curve when it comes to fantasy sports, those who play regularly keep on getting better at it and therefore become better at winning as well, thanks to understanding what kind of skill to employ.
You've used IPL very well to kind of establish your brand. I think you got that big impetus because of IPL. Would you be in agreement that it has been one of your best strategic investments? And is it true that once the brand is established and they stop investing in these very heavyweight, expensive vehicles, do you lose some of that sheen, or can you maintain it?
So you're right, the association with IPL and us sort of investing around the IPL in terms of marketing and advertising has naturally been one of our biggest growth levers over the years. While I think the trick for us has been to do it consistently over the last 7-8 years. Very often brands try it out and say, okay, let's do it for 1 year and then not do it again. Also, let me be honest and admit that our connect and synergy with cricket and IPL and sport is a little different from a lot of the other brands, because what is our product? Our product is the sport, and therefore the level of synergy, as I was calling, is much higher. It becomes a little easier for brands like us to continuously keep on reinvesting in IPL / actually any other marquee cricket tournament than some of the other brands, who might feel that we're not getting the necessary ROI year on year, or it becomes a little too expensive for us to do that. It also depends on timing. This happens in the summers. So a lot of beverages and soft drink brands and air conditioner brands and all of that tend to be a little more aggressive.
Exactly.
During this, if the IPL window was in winters, you probably would not see that. And then also some of them use it for just creating brand awareness overnight. Fastest way to scale up and said, okay, pre-IPL I did not know about this brand.
Absolutely.
And post-IPL I know about this. So there are different, some of them use it for sustained brand building, which is, I would say, is the way Dream11 goes about its business. Some of them do it in a more tactical, instant brand recognition. And there are others who are more topical and seasonal in nature, why do it. So I think each one will have a different use case and they'll have to figure out whether the investment is worth it.
Sure. Before I let you go, because I think I'm out of time, I just want to tell you that, since IPL is our biggest showing in terms of where you get so many viewers, we also expect the ads to be spectacular because it gets the most visibility. Sure. But over the last few years, you've seen that kind of quality, dipping, and the entertainment value or the oomph value of an ad really coming down. I hope other advertisers look at you and what you've attempted to do with your campaign for IPL and up the creative quotient for at least spectacular showings like this one.
Thank you so much. That's very kind of you. You're right. If you were to jog your memory and try and remember, Sonali, from the last IPL or any of the previous IPLs, try and think of 3, 4, 5 brands that come to your mind.
It's very difficult.
You'll struggle. Yeah, you'll struggle. Now, hundreds of brands are advertising, thousands of crores of rupees is being spent. And so to your point, for us to make sure that brand storytelling and breaking the clutter, getting the creative right,
bang for the buck.
all of that becomes very much important, because otherwise, you might as well stay away from IPL.
Exactly.
If you're not going to get that right. So I think we invest equally in getting the brand story and the creative, and to your point about massive scale and production and things of that sort, because there's a purpose it's serving.
Sure. And hopefully, you've obviously cricket is our religion, but hopefully players like yourselves who are leaders in this space can also drive excitement, with other sports which are still kind of struggling in India, and hopefully, those sports can also come to some level of scale in the country.
Dream11 offers actually almost 10 or 12 sports, besides cricket.
Yeah.
We do our bit. For example, Kabaddi is quite popular as a sport on Dream11, and there's others like football and NBA basketball and volleyball. There are a number of other sports. The good thing about cricket is very often it acts as like the top of the funnel, where lots of users will come to play fantasy cricket, but then will graduate or move to playing even fantasy kabaddi or fantasy basketball or football. That's our attempt to try and popularize other sports as well.
Well, thank you very much, and truly a pleasure speaking with you.
Same here. Thanks so much. Lovely being here.